Hello everyone, TurtleLags here bringing you another AFK Journey video. Now welcome to part 4 of the Beginner's Guide to AFK Journey. This video was inspired by a viewer who left a comment yesterday asking me, "Hey Turtle, what heroes do you recommend I add to the epic recruitment banner?" And it occurred to me that I completely glossed over this in part 1 of this series, if you can call it. So basically the structure of this video will be as follows. I'm going to first talk about the epic recruitment banner, how to use it in order to optimize the progression of your account. Second, I'm going to actually go over a tier list, a very fun tier list that I created as I was thinking logically about what heroes you should add to the epic wish list. Yeah, I'll go over that tier list, talking about how I define the tiers, and then I will basically spend maybe like 15 to 30 seconds explaining why each hero is in the tier that they are. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will have a good idea as to the value that every single hero in this game brings to the table. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the epic recruitment banner in general. Basically, typically how you would do it is most of your summons will take place on this banner, where when you get a hit, quote unquote, if you get an S rank hero, it'll be one of these 8 heroes. Now the problem, the limitation of this wish list is that sometimes there are factions that have more than 2 valuable S tier heroes, notably the Wilder faction, who you should still build. For instance, normally I would tell most viewers, build Eironn, build Lily May first, because those are the heroes that either do something that no other hero can do and is very impactful in that game mode, or they are a very beginner friendly hero who will be future proof. But as you can see here, you can put Eironn and Lily May here. However, you're missing out on, say, like a Tasi or a Lorsan, 2 S rank Wilders who you also will greatly benefit from and provide a lot of value. So for this reason, this is where the 2 heroes, let's say like Lorsan and Tasi, who you do not have in this wish list, you can add them to this epic recruitment. And what's nice about epic recruitment is that you get these premium resources from the Emporium called epic invite letters that you can spend. Basically it takes about 30 epic letters to guarantee that you get one of these 5 heroes. And you'll notice that you can add both S level and A level heroes. If you get a hit on an S level hero, like Shakir in this case, you will get 1 copy of him. However, if you get a hit and it's an A level hero, you'll get 5 copies of them. And there are certain brief periods of time along your AFK journey in which you may need to add, say, like a Bonnie, say like an Odie, say like a Koko, or even Faramor, because maybe you are trying to get 14 copies of, say, like Faramor, and RNG is kicking you in the butt, depriving you of your potential to be a Giga Chad. And this is where you'll be like, to heck with you, RNG, I'm going to add Faramor to this epic recruitment. That way I have a 20% chance of hitting him when, I get a hit for epic recruitment. So, yes, like in my case, I'm more focused on PvP now. I'm trying to get my Bonnie P4, and for this reason I'm adding her because I need 68 copies of her, and RNG is not in my favor right now. So that is the purpose of epic recruitment. Now let's go over the tier list. Okay, so welcome to the tier list that I created for the purposes of this video. Actually, there's parts of it that are chopped off here. So the tier list rankings will be defined for my video as follows. Because this is a video where I'm talking about epic recruitment in this video, this tier list will be more value oriented. It's not about which hero is better than that for this game mode or that mode. It's all about as a veteran who has played this game for more than a year, since March 27 of 2024, with my experience with all these heroes, if I was to start all over again, which heroes would I summon for first, second, third, and fourth in order to optimize the performance of my account at every step of the way? Okay, just think of it like this. So my tiers are defined as follows. The S tier doesn't have many heroes because these are the heroes that if I was to start over again, I would add them to the epic recruitment wish list. And I have an honorable number 6 because that hero in this case is Elijah and Laila. In the back will be the first celestial who I summon for in the Stargaze station. Okay, so that's S plus tier. Now the S tier, which is in the red row, is going to be the heroes who I will prioritize first. For summoning. And so naturally I will add them to the wish list first. And then the A tier, which is in the orange, will be must build eventually, meaning I want to build them, but as a free to play, I cannot build them right now or hyper focus on them right now, but I need them. Okay, and then C tier, which is in the yellow, is going to be quality of life. And these are heroes that if you are a whale, or if you are a veteran free-to-play player, you will need to work on these heroes eventually. Okay, and then I'm sorry, so that was S plus, quality of life is B tier. C tier is build last, meaning they will provide some value to your account, but you'll probably build them last, especially if you're free to play. And then finally is the F tier, who you should not build at all unless RNG just gives it to you, unless they're waifu, or unless you are a whale and just want to build your collection. Now you'll notice that there's 2 heroes that are out of this picture. It's Natsu and Lucy, and the reason why I didn't add them is because Lucy you get at Mythic Plus for free from the event, and you hardly use her. And I'm talking about these heroes, by the way. Let me show you. I'm talking about these limited time heroes. They were released last week as of this recording. You get a free Mythic Plus of Lucy, and you can summon for like 1 copy of Natsu, and then just stop there. Don't spend any resources on these heroes unless you're whales. The reason for this is because once they are out of the dimensional banner, you cannot summon for more copies of them again. They did announce that you can rent them, but it's like the dumbest feature in the universe. I mean, spending diamonds to rent these heroes, I mean, that's ridiculous. Not to mention, Lucy is pretty much not unplayable, but she's not in any meta-defining teams for any game mode so far. And then Natsu, I've used him sometimes in AFK stage pushing, and if I had him Paragoned, I'd probably use him in PvP as well. However, he's not necessary at all. So I'm not going to include them in this wish list when they're going to be disappearing in less than a month. Okay, so let's go over this tier list now. So starting from the top, on the top left is going to be Eironn, the elf-looking dude. He is an S plus rank tier hero because he is a hero who does crowd control, magic defense shred, and frontline tanking. And he's on the magic side. He enables a ton of team archetypes, both in PvP as well as AFK stage pushing. He should be a hero you build first. The second hero, I put Tasi here, but that's under the assumption that you're going to have Eironn and Lily May in the all-hero recruitment wish list. If you put Eironn and Tasi in the all-hero recruitment, you're going to put Lily May instead of Tasi in the epic recruitment. Does that make sense? So I put Tasi here because most people will put Eironn and Lily May in the other wish list first, but you still need to build Tasi, especially if you care about the end game, because Tasi is a hyper carry who is able to cheat death multiple times, is a major component for AFK stage pushing in combination with Eironn, the twins, Phraesto, and Bonnie, Faramor, etc. And her ultimate, she puts all enemies to sleep for 4 seconds and does a ton of damage, and it provides her energy too, so she can spam her ultimate event once you get the engine going to keep the enemies asleep. Very powerful in PvP, very helpful for auto clearing a ton of AFK stages while you are at work, on the toilet, showering, that sort of thing. Quality of life, but very powerful too. Alright, and then Cyran is another hero. Cyran was released this season. He is the guy that looks like Snape. Cyran, he is a Lightbearer mage who is able to, at Mythic Plus, silence the Mythic Plus EX10, silence the opponent for 8 seconds, making them unable to use their artifact spell. This gives you an edge in PvP, but not only that, he starts off with initial energy that gets to his one of the most broken ultimates in the game, where he creates a dark hole that suctions everyone, all the enemies I should say, to a certain point in the map, and puts a marker on their HP bar where if their total HP drops below this marker, he deletes the enemy from the map. And there's not many heroes who can delete enemies. We'll go over some, but there's less than 5 to my knowledge in this game. And and Cyran has a very high damage multiplier. Yeah. And then Smokey and Mirki, they are an S rank Mauler healer offensive buffing unit that is capable of improving the damage output of your party, as well as when you get him Mythic Plus EX 5 or 10, I forget which. He's on the third fog cast releases a blue fog or smoke that is pretty large radius, and any enemies caught within the blue fog will take 12% max HP loss per second for 10 seconds. So it's a great way to AFK stage clear. It's very powerful in PvP on a new server if you build him enough, and he is very useful in Dream Realm for high ranks. So very powerful. Ludovic is also a very impactful healer who also has the capability to make enemies lose their max HP. Yeah, and max HP percent damage dealers, or in this case healers like Smokey and this Graveborn healer Ludovic, is capable of allowing you to do massive damage to certain bosses such as Dream Realm bosses or Primal Lords to help you achieve a high ranking. So it's great, right? They're doing massive damage, and they're also healing. And then finally we have the twins. The twins, they are a celestial you should build first because they have multiple ways to provide offensive buffs for your heroes. They also provide energy that allows you to ult more frequently with your party, and this can create some incredible synergies where heroes who have broken ultimates, you get their ultimates off faster, you can take over games faster. So twins are quite necessary. Now moving on to the S tier heroes in the red. On the far left is going to be Lily May. Lily May is very good because she is an all-purpose DPS who has frames of invincibility, but most importantly, she has the ability with her passive to cancel the first ultimate cast by the enemies at the start of battle. And so for this reason, Lily May is useful in countering certain heroes like Eironn, who we mentioned above, because being able to interrupt the opponent's game plan allows you to execute your own game plan. Not to mention, she has a very high damage multiplier, and she does have her damage output grows over time. That's part of her kit, and she also has some true damage potential to my knowledge from my free-to-play experience. And Faramor, who is the wolf next to her, Faramor is a new A-rank hero who was released this season. He is a hero who is able to do true damage, make an ally behind him do true damage, and he also can summon this force, this like aura that anyone within this aura cannot heal, and this is very useful for AFK stage pushing. But because of his ability to make himself do true damage as well as an ally behind him, there's a lot of team building possibilities that allow him to make it into the best in slot team for a lot of the Dream Realm bosses and Primal Lord bosses. So, and then the next one over the tree, his name is Ulmus. He is another A-rank hero who is a tank, who has a very unique passive that anytime an enemy is displaced, like say like they're crowd controlled by Eironn or Cyran and grouped, and their position is moved, shifted, right? It triggers Ulmus's passive, which allows those enemies to be entangled bind for 2 seconds, making them unable to act. And this is very powerful. He has kind of fallen off in value from an AFK stage pushing perspective due to the presence of the twins, Elijah and Laila, who I mentioned for S+. Because of Elijah and Laila, AFK stage pushing teams are transitioning over to an ultimate spamming framework, and so for this reason Ulmus is not as necessary as in the past. In the past you needed Ulmus a little bit more to lock down the enemies. However, thanks to the twins, you can ult spam instead and crowd control that way. Excuse me. Now next to Ulmus is Odie, who is a Mauler DPS, who is a marksman, and he is one of the best A-rank, A-tier heroes in this game because he is a hero who is able to apply poison stacks onto the enemy, and it'll appear as a marker on their HP bar. And once their HP falls below where the marker is, the enemy, like a poison snake will appear and the enemy gets deleted from the map. This is very useful for various game modes, whether it be PvP or AFK stages where you're trying to delete, say like an Igor off the map, right? Bypassing the cheat death mechanic for him. So Odie's very powerful, not to mention he is very useful in early stages of Dream Realm. And he has PvP viability, so very good. Now, Shemira is the Graveborn waifu, who is actually our latest hero, rate up hero. And the reason why she is an S tier hero is because thanks to her high damage multiplier as well as her true damage potential, she is actually making a lot of the best in slot teams across various Dream Realm bosses. And she has some PvP potential, has some AFK stage pushing potential. Actually, not that much. Shemira might be too high in the rankings now that I think about it. But because she's in so many best in slot teams for Dream Realm now, I feel like she should be in S tier. So I'm just going to leave her there, why not? And then Thoran is the other one. Thoran is a Graveborn tank who can cheat death up to 2 times depending on how ascended he is on your account. And this is very useful against, especially against the first one of the first pre-season Dream Realm bosses, King Kruger, who can one-hit KO your frontmost ally, I think 3 times over the course of the battle, and Thoran can eat all those one-hit KOs. So he is especially important on your account if you do not have a Phraesto yet. If you watch my previous video, you would know that Phraesto, I do recommend summoning 1 or 2 copies of him at the start of your AFK journey. And the reason is because, well, I'll talk about that later, but anyways. Okay, so moving on to another Graveborn waifu, Bonnie. Bonnie is very good because she's useful in Dream Realm in preseason against the Necro Dragon, who shoots out puddles, poison puddles, and Bonnie can just jump out of them. She does high AoE damage. She applies an aging magic to decrease the haste of the rearmost enemy, which is usually a glass cannon or ranged DPS, someone problematic usually. So that's very powerful. She is quite impactful in PvP. She's also used a lot in AFK stage pushing, auto pushing, because she is a magic high damage dealing hero. She doesn't do true damage, but because her damage multiplier is so high, so she ends up having quite the impact on your account. And then going into Celestial Hypogeans, Phraesto is an S tier hero who you should summon at least once, twice, maybe 3 times in the beginning of your AFK journey, because at low copies, even at 1 copy, he already does more damage than a lot of Mythic Plus DPSs against certain bosses such as Primal Lords, Lone Gaze for instance, or say like any of the Dream Realm bosses. And this is because his skill 1 is the enemy loses, I think, like 2% of their max HP from he just basically has max HP percent scaling damage, and this allows him to have an absurdly high damage output for a tank. Not to mention he is basically 2 tanks in 1, because it's both his main as well as his illusion, and each one of them can buff the ally behind them. And then we have Reinier. Reinier is very good because he, at Mythic Plus, can dynamic balance, increasing the damage taken by an enemy by 25% and decreasing the damage taken by an ally by 25%. So this is very useful in a Dream Realm situation where there's just one enemy, and that's the Dream Realm boss. So you can automatically improve your damage output by 25%, right? Because they're taking 25% increased damage. Alright, let's move on to the A tier heroes. So, starting with the Wilders, the curly Goldilocks lady, Hewynn. She is a hero you should build because even though she's a bit slow of a healer, usually you want to complement her with a second healer. However, once she gets her ultimate off, she is crowd control immune during the prayer rain. All heals potency improves. Thanks to increased vitality. She heals everyone on the field no matter where they are, and she provides at EX10 a 36% damage reduction. So this is very useful for keeping your team alive, essentially. The rabbit next to her, Lorsan. Lorsan, he is one of the newer heroes this season. He is able to provide reliable heals, several offensive buffs, and significant damage output all in one. And he is probably one of the heroes who I underestimated the most and who has made a huge impact for me in PvP, particularly Supreme Arena. And I'm using him a ton in AFK stage pushing because all those offensive buffs plus his DPS plus his reliable heals make it so that you can auto clear a lot of stages with him. Moving on to this dwarf or pixie dude, his name is Damian. Damian is one of the few heroes who can cheat death because he's essentially off the map and he remote controls this chariot toy chariot who applies heals, offensive buffs, and he can also send an airplane out to stun the rearmost enemy periodically. And he is very important in PvP. I use him in my standard arena team, Supreme Arena team, and even though his uses are somewhat limited, but he is in those game modes, one of the heroes you have to have. Rowan is the next one over. He's the red-haired dude, child. He is a light bearer healer who, oddly, he doesn't heal himself. However, he burst heals any allies that are in range of a KO. And he is also one of the best energy batteries in the game, periodically with his super potions, providing bursts of energy to anyone around him within a certain radius. Rowan has made a resurgence across various game modes, including PvP, thanks to the introduction of Elijah and Laila earlier this season. This is because now you have two energy batteries, Rowan and Elijah and Laila, who can work together in order to basically spam your ultimates. And so for this reason, Rowan's stock has risen. You must build him. Next, we have this gold-haired lady. Her name's Sonja. She looks kind of like a pirate. And she is very good because she provides offensive buffs to two allies diagonally behind her. And not to mention, she also has high damage output. So she's like a sub DPS who can also improve the DPS output of two more DPSs. So very powerful. And then you have another pirate dude. His name is Sinbad. Sinbad is very powerful because he surveys the terrain periodically, the battlefield. He'll like jump off the map, pull out his map, and then he will designate a person as a hitter and a person as a beater or something like that. Basically, it's two different debuffs added to different enemies. Although in a Dream Realm setting, the Dream Realm boss can be both the hitter and the beater. It's not beater, it's a different term, I forget it. But anyways, these are debuffs that the highest damage dealing person, who is the hitter, their damage output decreases. And then I think the one who heals the most is the beater. I don't know. And then I think they take increased damage. And these debuffs are less potent in Dream Realm. However, they are still good enough to where Sinbad is used sometimes in best in slot Dream Realm teams. Okay, next is the warlock Hugin. Hugin is a healer who doesn't have very bursty heals. However, he has really chunky shields, and he's kind of like a front-loaded Koko, where I'll talk about Koko in a bit. But anyway, he's like more like a shielder with a little bit of heals. And he's very useful. Okay, Mikola is the waifu, the Mauler waifu next. She's my most favorite hero in this game. You may have seen her on my profile. And Mikola, she has fallen off as of late. However, she is a very reliable healer. Well, actually, she's more like a sub-healer. You wouldn't solo heal with her usually. However, she creates an arena where if you have more heroes, more allies in the arena compared to your enemies, your heroes get a bunch of offensive buffs and defensive buffs, a lot of them, and they're like good multipliers and everything. And so in a Dream Realm setting, naturally you'll have more allies than enemies because it's just one boss, so you automatically get the buff. And so she's a very good healer to have in that regard. Next we have the tiger Shakir. Now he has fallen off a bit, but he's still a good hero to build eventually, because he is basically like a frontline unit who holds down the fort and provides useful survival and offensive buffs to the allies. Now they're not very huge multipliers, but they're very unique buffs, such as life drain and haste, I think, and just very, very unique buffs. So he's useful in that regard. Koko is the child next to him. She is a Mauler tank who she's very free to play friendly, because the main reason you run her is because even though she doesn't heal very well, but her ult provides some of the chunkiest shields in the game, like more than half your HP bar of shields for all your allies. This is very useful for being able to avoid one-hit KOs in Dream Realm situations. And it also has PvP and AFK stage pushing implications, although Koko has fallen off this season for both of those modes. Now Kruger is the lion next to her with the red shawl, and Kruger is useful because if you are running a physical team instead of a magic team, Kruger becomes automatically one of the best support units you can have, because Kruger with his ultimate applies 4 stacks of 10% physical defense shred debuffs, and this makes it so that your damage output increases by like 40% kinda, so very powerful. And then finally we have the Celestial Hypogeans. A Celestial who you will want to build eventually is one of my most favorite heroes in this game. It's Talene. She's the red-haired angel. She's very good because she makes it in some best-in-slot Dream Realm teams, various event game modes. She's very powerful in PvP, and you use her in AFK stages. And the reason why she's not in must build first is because realistically for most free-to-play players won't have resources to start building her until probably one season has elapsed. You won't start building her until like month 4 or 5 unless she's your waifu, or you get like really early, like with Pity or something like that. Yeah, so that's the only reason she's A tier, not S tier. Okay. Alright, and then Harak is another one. Some people would argue that he's also contention for A tier, but the problem is, realistically, you can only Supreme plus 1 Celestial Hypogean every, say, like 2 months, let's say. So it's just not realistic. But Harak, if you're a dolphin or a whale, is very powerful because his gimmick is that every now and then he needs to feast, and whenever he feasts he gets stronger. The downside is sometimes your allies get feasted, so you pick up KOs for your opponent, which is kind of not great, which is why he's not used in PvP as much. However, in Dream Realm, when you need him, he's the best. There's no other hero who can do what he does, particularly against certain bosses like the Plague Creeper, but he is also the beneficiary of one of the most broken magic charms in the game. It's been like that for 2 seasons straight, and it could be for next season as well. Alright, so now moving on to the S plus SA to the B tier heroes, quality of life. Alright, so starting things off would be Bryon. So these are quality of life, meaning it'd be great if you had them on your account, but not super necessary. Bryon, you mainly run him in situations where you're facing a Lily May, or you need another good damage dealing Wilder. And the reason for this is because at the start of battle he casts an eagle who does a ton of damage, and this can serve as a bait for Lily May's first ult cancel. You basically position your Bryon in front of your Cyran or Eironn, so that Bryon will bait that passive so that your Eironn or Cyran is free to cast their ult off. Yeah, so very useful. Arden is another quality of life. He has fallen off quite a bit. I hardly use him now, even in AFK stage pushing, but he's essentially a crowd control mage. He's the bearded one. And then the Wilder waifu who looks like a lynx, Lenya, she is useful periodically in certain game modes because of her high damage output, as well as her unique ability to isolate an enemy where she basically aggroes them and kicks them off to one side of the map so they have their own mini duel. Lyca, she's actually starting to fall off quite a bit because Dionnel's not great anymore, but Lyca, she basically provides an attack speed buff at the start of battle for all your allies. Yeah, and actually she might not even be worthy of B tier. Parisa, she's a very good quality of life hero. I've been using her a lot lately, and she has a special place in my heart because her voice actress did raid my Twitch channel a couple times in the early days of AFK Journey. And Parisa, she's the girl with the yellow flower. She's very good because she has a very high damage multiplier, who also makes another DPS do even more damage, so quite good. Cassidy, who is the silver-haired girl with the blue outfit, she is a light bearer mage who also buffs the damage output of other folks. Every time they do a normal attack, they trigger the Blessing of Tidal Strength, and that does supplemental damage. Faye, who is with the red bandana and the yellow outfit, she is a light bearer healer who, even though her kit is not that great, she applies enough buffs, I think, and debuffs and heals to where she is relevant sometimes, but it's mainly because there's not many good light bearer units right now. But she's seen a lot of play still. Lucius, which is the tank with the gold hair and the wings, he is a light bearer tank who can shield all of your allies, no matter where they are on them. Well, actually, no, that's not true. He shields most of your allies within a certain radius of him every time he ults, and this has relevance mainly in the Lightbearer faction tower or Endura's trials. So he's more quality of life. Muriel's the same thing. There's certain game modes where you will run her, but those game modes, particularly battle drills, are not super important, although there's certain events where she does shine because she did get buffed. Ulsa is the mauler. I don't even know what that animal's called. Yeah, and she wears a bip. Or a tank top. So she's a ranged magic damage dealer who attacks very quick. She did have a gimmick against one Dream Realm boss, Orson, where the more basically Orson would apply 8 buffs on him, and you needed to knock those buffs off of him by doing as many quick basic attacks in succession as possible, and also had that role. She used to be good in battle drills as well, but I mean, I haven't used her in a while, even in PvP. But she can have moments of brilliance in certain seasons. Brutus is a hero who I hardly use now, but when you need him, you need him. And this would be like Dura's Trials, for instance, when the enemy is one-shotting your entire party, and you just need someone who can hold the front line for 5 seconds so you can actually do something. Brutus is your guy, and he's the lion. Going into the next row, Lumont, the Rhino, is another quality of life hero. I haven't used him this season, but he's funny. He's a tank that bulldozes enemies, and as they're bulldozed, they're like, and they can't do anything. Reese, I don't know how he's even in here, but sometimes you need him to score high for a particular event. Yeah, he's like a DPS that's not super great. Entendre, who is the Lioness waifu tank, she is a reliable tank, but just not the best tank. She will shield herself and jump to the weakest ally periodically to shield him or her when they are in danger. It's pretty cool. Satrana actually should be higher ranked. I apologize. Satrana, she's the other Mauler waifu with the ears, the dancer. And the reason she has been climbing in the ranks, she went from build last to quality of life to now. I should actually be pushing her up to the must build eventually tier. Yeah. The reason for this is because Satrana, she's one of the few heroes in the game besides Faramor now and Dunleer who is capable of impeding the opponent's ability to heal properly. There are more heroes now that are able to revive and cheat death, and if you can put a stop to that, that is very valuable, and Satrana is capable of doing that. Not to mention, she did get a permanent buff with her damage output, so she does even more dot damage over time damage than before. So for this reason, she is climbing in the ranks. And then Seth, who is the I don't know what animal he is. He's wearing the brown robes and has like a purple skin. Seth, he's useful for certain events, particularly the how many enemies can you kill within 90 seconds kind of events. Because every time, because he jumps around a lot and he does good amounts of damage, and he aggroes onto the enemy that has the lowest HP. Then you have Igor. Igor actually should be rising to the must build eventually, and the reason why his stock is rising is because we're getting more obnoxious DPSs like Athalia, where you just need to hold down the line for a couple more seconds so that you can assemble your game plan. And Igor is able to cheat death multiple times thanks to his tombstones that appear on the map every time the enemy's HP dips below a certain amount for the first time of the match. Nara, she's the one who looks like those troll gummies. She's the green-haired lady. So Nara, she has fallen off, but made a slight resurgence this season 2 for AFK stage pushing, because she will throw out her hook and reel in an enemy based on your positioning of her on the map. She, in combination with Callan, who's the robot right next to him, are capable of AFK stage pushing specific stages where you might want to auto. So she's very good with that. And then Callan, yeah, the robot next to her, he's a Graveborn tank who applies a blanket shield, force field, that any allies within that force field, they do not get hit until the shield breaks. And so I have seen him used in PvP by one of my friends, Atroxy. Callan is appearing in AFK stage pushing now, and yeah, a good hero to have. Niru's the other one. Niru might be in must build eventually, but he has fallen off a little bit this season because of the wilder talents, but maybe he should be bumped up. The reason for this is because at the start of battle, he applies a revival blessing onto the ally directly behind him, and over the course of the match, he does apply a new revival blessing onto another unique ally. And so, if he survives long enough, he can actually allow all your allies cheat death once. There's no other hero who can do this. But that's the main reason you run him, so you have to have a specific game plan for that. Now, Sylvina is another one. Sylvina's quality of life, the reason for that is because you need to fully build her for her to be valuable, and she is a very specific game plan for PvP. And the reason for this is because you basically have her positioned in such a way that you hyper-focus on a particular enemy that you're trying to defeat, because she'll jump over and start aggroing onto that enemy. For Sylvina, you need a specific team combination where you have her along with, say, like a Reinier to dynamic balance her, or say like a Vala to hyper focus on that same target, or say like a Bonnie if you're hyper focusing on the rearmost enemy who tends to be the most problematic unit. Sylvina needs a partner in crime to pick up a quick KO and take over a game. So very niche. I think most players, don't really need her. Okay, and then finally for Celestial Hypogeans, we have Cryonaya, the ice mommy, you can say. She's one of my favorite heroes in this game. She's one of the newest hyper carries in this game. Basically, her kit revolves around casting her ultimate. Once she casts her ultimate, she freezes the terrain, isolates 3 of the highest damage dealing enemies, and she 1v3s them. But the thing is, even though it's a 1v3, she cannot die during this state, and the enemies, once their HP bar dips below a certain amount, there will be a marker that indicates where this checkpoint is. Once their HP drops below a certain amount, they will freeze like a statue, and they cannot revive, they cannot participate in the battle any longer. And so usually you'll have Cryonaya with energy batteries, like the twins for instance, and maybe even Rowan, in order to execute the game plan. So very powerful hyper carry for PvP. The reason she's not higher is because there's too many important Celestial Hypogeans to create or to build, so she's not a high priority. Same goes for Athalia. Athalia, who is the Valkyrie, you can say, the Celestial Valkyrie. She's a rogue who is able to do insane amounts of damage, and yeah, she's very, very powerful in PvP. She's like a more splashable hyper carry compared to Cryonaya, and Athalia, she's very easy to splash into teams. If you just need another DPS, you can just slot her in. She's great. And after she gets KO'd, she persists in Lance form, where she becomes a Lance that just kind of like does supplemental damage to the enemies that are still on the field. And Dunleer is another quality of life. He's like the Santa Claus or the Zeus looking hero tank. He is probably the most future-proof hero who no one builds, because Dunleer, he has 2 different modes. He has a Spellbind mode and a Curelock mode. Most people will do the Spellbind mode, but essentially he will ring the Bell of Order at the start of battle, and if he is under Spellbind mode, for the first 12 seconds of the match, no one on the battlefield can cast their ultimate. And then if it's the Curelock, if you set him as Curelock mode at the formation page, he will make it so that during the 12 seconds of the Bell of Order, no one can heal. Now there is an exception. He does buff the ally who is the furthest from him with a Clemency Chime. The hero who has the Clemency Chime is exempt from this Bell of Order, meaning if, say, you have him in the Spellbind mode, you would basically have your prize DPS, like Cryonaya or Athalia, as the person, or Cyran, as the beneficiary of the exception, the Clemency Chime, so that he or she can cast their ultimate, but no one else can. And this is how you develop your advantage. It's very powerful, and very tricky to use sometimes too. And then same goes for Curelock. If you still want a healer to heal, to heal, then you can put, say, like your Damian in the back, or Hewynn or Lorsan or Ludovic in the back with the Clemency Chime, so that he is the only person on the map who can heal. Yeah. Okay. This video is getting a little bit long, so I'm not going to go over the rest of these heroes. If you are curious why, say, Valka or Scarlita are in the build last category, or why these heroes are in the do not build category, you can leave a comment below asking me about that specific hero, and I'd be happy to explain. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.